So it's got it. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Ajnanatirandasya jnananjana tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today we will be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 8 of canto 3. Last Thursday we had Diwali in the temple, so we couldn't have our regular Srimad Bhagavatam class on Thursday last week. But a week before that, we had discussed chapter 7 of canto 3, and this is the discussion between Vidura and Maitreya, two great souls. When we can see that when common people meet, what do they discuss about? And they discuss about the common things, the things of this world, material world. So I don't know what do the people discuss in this age. They'll talk about the movies, they'll talk about the politics, they'll talk about shopping. So they'll talk about all the material things when people meet. But here, and Vidura and Maitreya, let's see what the two great souls are discussing. They're discussing about the Lord. They're discussing about how people can be really happy. So things like that, spiritual transcendental topics. They've been discussing, and in the last chapter 7, and that Vidura asked a couple of questions to Maitreya, saying, what are these questions? Vidura mentioned that if Lord is in everyone's heart, why do living entities undergo ignorance? And also, if the living entity is spiritual, we are all spirit souls. Why do we actually suffer? If I'm a spirit soul, if the Lord is present in me, why do I suffer? And Maitreya, so he gave two analogies. We discussed this. The first analogy is that the suffering of living entity is compared to that of a dream. So someone sees his head being cut off. After head being cut off, also that person sees the trunk and the head. How is it possible? That is not possible in reality, but that is only possible in dream. If one experiences a nightmare, and in that nightmare, if he could see that his head being cut off, and even after cutting off, then he could still see the head and as well as the remaining body. So that's a dream. That is only that doesn't exist in reality, but that's only dream. So the misery that we are undergoing is also like that. And he gives another analogy, that moon reflecting on the waters appears to be trembling. but the moon is still up there, but it appears to be trembling because it is in contact with the water. It is in the association of water. That's why the moon appears to be tremble. Similarly, we are in contact with this material body and the material nature. We appear to have this suffering. So it's like a dream, and it's like, because we are in touch with this material nature and material body, we appear to have that suffering. And then he says that, to come out of this illusion, to come out of this misidentity, one must serve a great soul. Only by serving great souls, one can realize the purport of the Vedic literature. Although one may know so many things, but unless one serves a pure devotee, his knowledge will never be fructified. So that was the very key point. People are very much eager to know, very, very much eager to know, but they are not very eager to put into practice. They are not eager to practice them, because that requires realization. So the point Vidura tells here is a very wonderful, and it is very, very, very applicable to all of us. Vidura tells Maitreya that one should serve a great devotee, a devotee of the Lord. Then only he will say, we know that, I'm not this body, I'm the spirit soul, but I'm not at that level. I do not practice that all the times. So Vidura tells that simply one should serve a devotee of the Lord. So always remember this point, always, we have to question ourselves. How can I serve a devotee of the Lord? And of course, in our movement, we have Prabhupada, by following his instructions, we serve him. That's the point. How do we serve a pure devotee? So we have to just follow their instructions. So that was the key message, and he was very much eager. Vidura was very much eager to serve. Maitreya. So the one point that we really took home from the previous chapter was, although we know many things, we will not be able to put them into practice unless we serve pure devotee of the Lord. That's the bottom line. That is the purport of all the Vedas. And now we'll move on to the 8th chapter. So the discussion continues between Maitreya and Vidura. It's a long discussion. Common people, also materialistic people, they chit chat for so long, so much time they spend in chit chatting, discussing various topics of this world. But here we can see how these great souls, they are never satiated of discussing the topics concerning the Lord and his devotees. So I will share the screen, and let me see that we can do. Yeah, chapter 8. Okay, so chapter 8 is entitled Manifestation of Brahma from Garbhodaka Shai Vishnu. So Can I request someone to read? Maybe we can go in the order, or I'll pick someone. Who hasn't done? Aravind Prabhu, are you there?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you so much. Would you mind reading from text 1 to 9, please?
Sure. Text 1. The great sage Maitreya Muni said to Vidura, the royal dynasty of King Puru is worthy to serve the pure devotees because all the descendants of that family are devoted to the personality of Godhead. You are also born in that family, and it is wonderful that because of your attempt, the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are becoming newer and newer at every moment. Let me now begin speaking on the Bhagavad Purana, which was directly spoken to the great sages by the personality of Godhead, for the benefit of those who are entangled in extreme miseries for the sake of very little pleasure. Some time ago, being inquisitive to know, Sanat Kumara, the chief of the boy saints, accompanied by other great sages, inquired exactly like you about the truths regarding Vasudeva, the Supreme, from Lord Shankarshan, who is seated at the bottom of the universe. At that time, Lord Shankarshan was meditating upon his Supreme Lord, whom the learned esteem as Lord Vasudeva. But for the sake of the advancement of the great learned sages, he slightly opened his lotus-like eyes and began to speak. The sages from the highest planets down to the lower regions through the water of the Ganges, the sages came from the highest planets down to the lower region through the water of the Ganges, and therefore the hair on their heads was wet. They touched the lotus feet of the Lord, which are worshipped with various paraphernalia by the daughters of the Serpent King when they desire good husbands. The 4 Kumaras headed by Sanat Kumara, who all knew the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, glorified the Lord in rhythmic accents with selected words full of affection and love. At that time, Lord Shankarshan, with his thousands of raised hoods, began to radiate an effulgence from the glowing stones on his head. Lord Shankarshan thus spoke the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam to the great sage Sanat Kumara, who had already taken the vow of renunciation. Sanat Kumara also, in his turn, when inquired of by Sankhya Muni, explained Srimad Bhagavatam as he had heard it from Sankarsana. The great sage Sankhya was the chief amongst the transcendentalists, and when he was describing the glories of the Lord in terms of Srimad Bhagavatam, it so happened that my spiritual master, Parashara, and Brihaspati both heard him. The great sage Parashara, as aforementioned, being so advised by the great sage Pulastya, spoke unto me the foremost of the Puranas, Bhagavatam. I shall also describe this before you, my dear son, in terms of my hearing, because you are always my faithful follower.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. So here, Maitreya glorifies Vidura also. Vidura said that I should serve a devotee like you. Then only I'll be able to realize the truth. Then only I'll be able to realize what I'm hearing from you. But Vidura, Maitreya in turns glorifies Vidura as well. And he says in the text 1 that you are coming from Puru dynasty, royal dynasty of Puru, and he's a great devotee of the Lord. And in this dynasty, there are so many wonderful devotees of the Lord. So you're also born in that wonderful family. In your association, the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are becoming newer and newer at every moment. See, the thing is, we can't discuss the topics of the Lord with a mundane person, materialistic person. They will not be able to enjoy the topics concerning Lord and his devotees, isn't it? We can only enjoy the discussion of the topics in the association of devotees. So Maitreya says that, yes, in your presence, in your association, all these topics are becoming newer and newer. Hmm? And then he says, the second verse, let me speak Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Purana. And he says this Purana was spoken to the Lord, spoken by the Lord to the sages directly. So this Srimad Bhagavatam is coming from time immemorial, and it was directly spoken by the Lord to the sages. Why did he speak? For the benefit of those who are entangled in extreme miseries for the sake of very little pleasure. So, yes, people undergo. We all like, fall into this category to a degree. We undergo lot of misery for a tiny bit of pleasure. And so for the benefit of people of this kind, Lord is very much compassionate, and therefore he spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam to the sages in the beginning. And we will read that purport. It is nice to know what is in there. So maybe Anuradha Mataji, you want to read the purport to the second verse?
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Bol.
Right. The sage Maitreya proposed to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam because it was especially compiled and traditionally comes down in quick succession for the solution of all the problems of human society. Only one who is fortunate can have the opportunity to hear Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of pure devotees of the Lord. Under the spell of material energy, the living entities are entrapped in the bondage of many difficulties simply for the sake of a little bit of material happiness. Their activities not knowing the implications. Under the false impressions that the body is the self, the living entities foolishly relate to so many false attachments. They think that they can engage in materialistic paraphernalia forever. False misconception of life is so strong that a person suffers continually, life after life, under the external energy of the Lord. If one comes in contact with the book Bhagavatam, as well as with the devotee Bhagavata, who knows what the Bhagavatam is, then such a fortunate man gets out of the material entanglement. Therefore, Sri Maitreya Muni, out of compassion for the suffering men in the world, proposes to speak on the Srimad Bhagavatam, first and last. Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, you're muted.
Let me drink some water, sorry. A wonderful statement here. If one comes in contact with the book Bhagavatam, as well as with the devotee Bhagavata, who knows what the Bhagavatam is. So, Bhagavatam and the devotee Bhagavatam. Then such a fortunate man gets out of the material entanglement. So this is very important. Although we may have book Bhagavatam, but person Bhagavatam is also very important. So we have book Bhagavatam and person Bhagavatam with us is Srila Prabhupada and his instructions. So therefore, Maitreya Muni, out of compassion for the suffering man in this world, proposes to speak this Srimad Bhagavatam. So, Bhagavatam is the remedy for our suffering. Mm. So why did he come to this place? This topic, because Vidura, actually in the 5th chapter, he asked this question, 352, third canto, 5th chapter, and second verse. So here Vidura asked, "Oh great sage, everyone." So I'll just put that on the screen. You can see as well. So this is 352. "Oh great sage, everyone in this world engages in fruity activities to attain happiness. But one finds neither satiation nor the mitigation of distress. On the contrary, one is only aggravated by such activities. Please, therefore, give us the direction on how one should live for real happiness." This was one of the questions in the previous chapter asked by Vidura to Maitreya. So, yes, we work hard, but we are only still suffer. Uh, uh, we find neither satiation nor mitigation of the distress. Distress is still there. Our every endeavor is to become happy, but the distress is still there. And so that's why Vidura's wonderful question was how one should live for real happiness. So, and so in answer to that question here, he says that one should hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Mm. That's how one can get the real happiness. That's how one knows how to obtain the real happiness. And this Srimad Bhagavatam is coming from time immemorial. It was spoken by the Lord, to the sages. So I will narrate the same thing. He says. So he tells that Sanat Kumar, the 4 Kumaras, we know that these 4 sages were the first created beings by Brahma. And so these sages, although they were the oldest, they appear to be only of a 5-year of age. They do not want to grow any further. They do not want to grow any older and undergo any old age problems. So they are the oldest living entities, but they only appear to be very, very small and appear to be of a 5-year of age. So these sages, once upon a time, they wanted to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So they traveled from the topmost planet, which is Brahmaloka, to the bottom of the universe, or the bottom of the planet. And the lowest planet is Patala Loka. So there are different planets, isn't it? We all know. So topmost is the Brahmaloka. So how did they travel? So Mother Ganges travels from the topmost planet to the bottom planet. So she purifies, she sanctifies the 3 worlds, the upper, middle, and the lower planets. And so they traveled through the water of Ganges. Prabhupada writes very nicely that through yogic power, one can travel like that. So he says here, the sages came down from Satyaloka by taking advantage of the flowing water, a process of transportation made possible by the power of mystic yoga. If a river flows thousands and thousands of miles, a perfect yogi can at once transport himself from one place to another simply by dipping in its water. Wow. So that was some of the yogic potency. From one place to the another place through the water at once, one can travel. And these sages, these sages, so they came at once. So from the topmost planet to the lowest planet, Patala Loka. And at that place, Patala Loka, or the bottom of the universe, we see Sankarshan, another incarnation of the Lord, lives there. So they directly heard this message from the Sankarshan Ananta. So Serpent King, Ananta is the serpent. So so for the benefit of sages and the whole humankind, this Sankarshan, Lord Sankarshan, so with his thousands of raised hoods, so he spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam. And these sages, the four sages, Sanat, Sanatan, Sanaka, Sanat, Sanandan, sorry, Sanat, four Kumaras. So these four Kumaras, they having heard Srimad Bhagavatam from Ananta Dev or Lord Sankarshan, so they spoke the same message to a sage called Sankhya Muni, and then Sankhya Muni then explained it to others. And when Sankhya Muni spoke, Parashara and Bruhaspati also heard, and from Parashara, Maitreya heard this. So this is the disciplic succession. Maitreya was telling that how he was able to gain this knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam. So he heard it from his guru Parashara. Parashara heard it from Sankhya Muni. Sankhya heard it from four Kumaras. Four Kumaras directly received this message of Srimad Bhagavatam from Sankarshan, Lord Sankarshan. So Prabhupada writes very nicely in text 7. So let's read the text 7. Drishti, are you able to read text 7 purport?
Yes, Hare Krishna, I can read. Okay. Just the purport?
Yes, please.
Okay. This is the way of the Parampara system. Although Sanat Kumara, the well-known great saintly Kumara, was in the perfect stage of life, still he heard the message of Srimad Bhagavatam from Lord Shankarsana. Similarly, when he was questioned by Sankhya Rishi, he spoke to him the same message he had heard from Lord Shankarsana. In other words, unless one hears from the proper authority, one cannot become a preacher. In devotional service, therefore, 2 items out of the 9, namely hearing and chanting, are most important. Without hearing nicely, one cannot preach the message of Vedic knowledge.
Thank you very much. This is a very important message. So I selected this purport, extremely important. So one must hear from a proper source. And then one will be able to repeat the message to others. So here Prabhupada says, in other words, unless one hears from the proper authority, one cannot become a preacher. In devotional service, therefore, 2 items out of the 9, namely hearing and chanting, are most important. Hearing means hearing the transcendental message from authority, from the bona fide source, from the right source is very important. That is hearing. And chanting means whatever we hear, we repeat to others. That is chanting. Chanting means kirtanam. Kirtanam means glorifying the Lord. So Shukadeva Goswami, he was glorifying the Lord, the 7 days and 7 nights. So he was speaking Srimad Bhagavatam, that was chanting, that was like chanting. And Shukadev, Parikshit Maharaj heard the message, so that was hearing. So hearing and chanting are most important. Without hearing nicely, one cannot preach the message of Vedic knowledge. So it is a very important instruction for all of us, that hearing is very important. So in our tradition, in our society, we have this always takes place, hearing and chanting. So in the morning we have Srimad Bhagavatam class, there are seminars, Bhagavad Gita classes, other regular classes, and we also have Prabhupada lectures. So we can hear. The more we hear, the better we can preach this message to others. So 389, I would like to. So I like to just one second. So I just wanted to bring one more point from here. So just see that sometimes some people says that these Puranas are only like few, maybe 5,000 year old, or only recent, and they say Puranic Vedas are most authoritative than Puranas. Puranas are given less importance than the Vedas. The Puranas are in the story form. The Vedas mainly they are philosophical. So one important point to counteract that argument is this. So Srimad Bhagavatam is a Purana, isn't it? Yeah. So Srimad Bhagavatam was being narrated from the time immemorial by disciplic succession. Just imagine these sages. They were the first created beings in this world, in this universe, and they heard this message of Srimad Bhagavatam from Lord Sankarshan. So it is being narrated from time immemorial by disciplic succession, even before the time of Vyasdev. This is very important. Please remember that. Don't think that only Vyasdev, from Vyasdev, after Vyasdev, or from the time of Vyasdev, these Puranas exist. No, Vyasdev only compiled. They were there. The message was there. The message was there in the form of Shruti and Smruti. So there were no written scriptures, but people used to transcend this knowledge, or people used to speak and hear, and that's how the message was being transmitted, hearing and remembering. So that's how, once they hear, they remember, they repeat. That's how the message was being transmitted. So, but for people of Kali Yuga, so we are having short memory. We are not that intelligent. We have so many other things. We're not so sharp like people in other ages. So that's why Vyasdev just put them together. Even before the time of Vyasdev, the so-called historians calculate the Puranas to be only a few hundred years old, but factually the Puranas existed from time immemorial, before all historical calculations by the mundaners and speculative philosophers. Hope that makes sense. That's an important point that you all have to remember, that this Srimad Bhagavatam exists from time immemorial. It's not just only few hundred years old or few thousand years old. So that's a very, very important point that, make a note of that. Next, we'll move on to the next part of the 8th chapter. So could we request someone to read from, let me see. Yeah, 15 to 23, text 15 to 23. Sahana Mataji, are you there? Are you able to read by any chance?
I am on my phone, Prabhuji. I'll try. Yeah.
You sure? If you're struggling,
maybe,
just let us know. If you're struggling,
yeah, maybe I'll pass it on to somebody else because my screen, I'm not on the computer screen. So
yeah. Sorry, I picked you up, and so
no, not to worry. Yeah.
Sorry, from 10 till 23. Text 10 to 23.
Text 10. At the time when 3 worlds were submerged in water, Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu was alone, lying on his bedstead, the great snake Ananta, and although he appeared to be in slumber in his own internal potency, free from the action of external energy, his eyes were not completely closed. Just like the strength of fire within fuel wood, the Lord remained within the water of dissolution, submerging all the living entities in their subtle bodies. He lay in the self-invigorated energy called Kala. The Lord lay down for 1,000 cycles of 4 yugas in his internal potency, and by his external energy, he appeared to be sleeping within the water. When the living entities were coming out for further development of their fruitive activities, actuated by the energy called Kala Sakti, he saw his transcendental body as bluish. The subtle subject matter of creation on which Lord's attention was fixed was agitated by the material mode of passion, and thus the subtle form of creation pierced through his abdomen. Piercing through this sum total form of the fruitive activity of the living entities took the shape of the bud of a lotus flower generated from personality of Vishnu, and by his supreme will it illuminated everything like the sun and dried up the vast waters of devastation. Into that universal lotus flower, Lord Vishnu personally entered as a super soul, and when it was thus impregnated with all the modes of material nature, the personality of Vedic wisdom, whom we call the self-born, was generated. Brahma, born out of lotus flower, could not see the world, although he was situated in the wall. He therefore circumambulated all of space, and while moving his eyes in all directions, he achieved 4 heads in terms of the 4 directions. Lord Brahma, situated in that lotus, could not perfectly understand the creation, the lotus, or himself. At the end of millennium, the air of devastation began to move the water and the lotus in greater circular waves. Lord Brahma, in his ignorance, contemplated, who am I that am situated on top of the lotus? Wherefrom has it sprouted? There must be something downwards, and that from which this lotus has grown must be within the water. Lord Brahma, thus contemplating, entered the water through the channel of stem of the lotus, but in spite of entering the stem and going near the navel of Vishnu, he could not trace out the root. O Vidura, while searching in that way about his existence, Brahma reached his ultimate time, which is the eternal wheel in the hand of Vishnu, and which generates fear in the mind of living entities like the fear of death. Thereafter, being unable to achieve the desired destination, he retired from searching and came back again to the top of the lotus. Thus, controlling all objectives, he concentrated his mind on the Supreme Lord. At the end of Brahma's 100 years, when his meditation was complete, he developed the required knowledge, and as a result, he could see in his heart the Supreme within himself, whom he could not see before with the greatest endeavor. Brahma could see that on the water there was a gigantic lotus-like white bedstead, the body of Sheshanaga, on which the personality of Godhead was lying alone. The whole atmosphere was illuminated by the rays of the jewels bedecking the hood of Sheshanaga, and that illumination dissipated all those darkness of those regions.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you for that wonderful reading. So very nice, this section. So in text 1 to 9, the disciplic succession was given, how Srimad Bhagavatam was received, how he actually received the knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam was given. Maitreya heard it from his spiritual master Parashar. Parashar heard it from Sankhyayan Rishi. Sankhyayan Rishi directly heard from Sanat Kumaras. Sanat Kumaras heard it from Lord himself. So that was the disciplic succession, and now he talks the Srimad Bhagavatam. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the birth of Brahma is given. This is how the birth of Brahma given. And then he talks about birth of Brahma now. And if you remember, in one of the previous chapters, we only discussed how the material universe was created. There were 23 ingredients which are necessary for the creation of this material universe were actually supplied by the Lord himself, and they were separately offered. Each material ingredient had a demigod, and they offered prayers to the Lord. Oh my Lord, give us the cohesive energy, so that we all elements, we can come together and then form a universe. So, and then we know that that's how the universe was formed. And after the universe was formed, this Lord Mahavishnu, he expands himself into Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu. He enters this universe. This universe, our universe, is 4 billion yojanas. How many? 4 billion yojanas. Yojana means 8 miles. 4 billion yojanas in diameter. So Lord expands, and he was so huge. And so this whole universe was empty. With his perspiration, he fills the universe. And on that universe, he lies down on the bed of Ananta. Lord Ananta is a snake. So, and the living entities are in the subtle form in his body, and Lord, then from the Lord's navel, this lotus sprouts out, and on top of this lotus, Lord Brahma takes his birth. We heard this many times. And so within that lotus stem, or various planets exists. All these different planets we talk about, the upper is upper, middle, and the lower planetary system actually existing within that lotus stem. And that source of the lotus is Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, who is at the bottom of the universe, lying on this waters. And so we see that Lord Brahma, he tried to understand his source, and then he moved in 4 directions. When he moved in 4 directions, he got 4 heads. He developed 4 heads. And then let's see a couple of things we'll read from that section.
Prabhuji,
Yes,
Just one question. That purport where it says that Vishnu was lying down, and then he could. It seemed by his external energy, it seems that he was just lying down, but he was had. I don't know what it exactly said over there. I'm not on the in the book right now.
Slumber,
Yeah.
sleep.
Yeah. Sleep, correct. So
Yeah,
it seems that he could see his form as bluish. I mean, why is that mentioned? What does that signify?
So yeah, the bluish, isn't it? You mentioned.
Yeah.
So I can find out that point here. Yeah. He saw his transcendental body as bluish. So when the living entities were coming out for further development of their fruitive activities, actuated by the energy called Kala Shakti, he saw his transcendental body as bluish. So we have to read the purport. So Prabhupada said, due to this polluted mentality, due to material sins, the aggregated combination of living entities appear to be bluish. Okay, so in the purport Prabhupada gave, so the Lord laid down on this bed of Ananta Shesha on the waters. So the living entities were in their subtle form in the body of this Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, and they were coming out. It says here, this purport gives, one thinks himself very clever throughout his life if he is also able to live. Anyway, so due to this, like, basically all the living entities, they have this, have the polluted mentality. Because they think themselves to the Lord, that's why they came to this material world. So Prabhupada here gives, if you see, due to this polluted mentality and due to the material sins, the aggregated combination of the living entities appear to be bluish. Such an impetus of activity for fruitive results is made possible by the dictation of external energy of the Lord Kala. Okay, Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji, that's fine. Thank you. Hari Krishna.
My knowledge also, I can't go beyond that as well. I can see how much I can understand, that much only I can tell you.
Of course, no, Prabhuji, that's absolutely fine. Thank you.
Yeah. So yes, actually I did read this, and yeah, so this is how. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I did not put the purport to you actually. So it is 3.8.12. The purport is there. You can go and read that purport.
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you.
And couple of things here that about Lord Brahma, he tried to find out the source of his lotus stem, lotus. So, and he said like this, Lord Brahma in his ignorance contemplated, who am I that I'm situated on the top of this lotus? I'll just put this here. Who am I that I'm situated on the top of this lotus? Wherefrom as it sprouted, there must be something downwards, and that from which this lotus has grown must be within the water. So these were his contemplations. And let's read the purport. Mataji, Meena Mataji, small purport, you can read it.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So it says the subject matter of the speculations of Brahma in the beginning regarding the creation of the cosmic manifestation is still a subject matter for mental speculators. Right. The most intelligent man is he who tries to find the cause of his personal existence and that of the whole cosmic creation, and thus tries to find the ultimate cause. if his attempt is properly executed with penances and perseverance, it is sure to be crowned with success.
So there you go. This is the message for our modern philosophers.
Yes.
And yes, point is, it's very interesting. You know, if you read this purport and also purport of 19 and 22, you will be, you know, the answer is clearly given. We may have several things, we may put several arguments, but unless we got the qualification to understand.
Correct. You're right. Absolutely.
The point here is that, you know, actually Prabhupada writes, please listen to, everybody please listen to this, very, very important. Lord Brahma, through the channel of that lotus stem, he went down, but he could not trace out. He could not see the source. He could not see Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu. And then he searched everywhere. Then he started to fear. Oh my God, I am there on the lotus, but where is the source? So Prabhupada writes very nicely that Lord Brahma went so close to Lord Vishnu, but he could not see. Two things are required, because one has to perform that austerity or that purification, that the devotional service. Yeah, put it that way. Number one is that to understand the Lord, to actually experience the Lord and Lord's presence, first thing is there is a qualification. That qualification is devotional service. And second thing is that it's mercy. So we are in the month of mercy of the Lord. Two things are required: our devotional service and mercy of the Lord. Then only we'll be able to understand, we'll be able to experience the presence of the Lord. So this is month of Kartik, and we offer ghee lamp to Lord Damodar every day. And this signifies how great the Lord is. Although he is the Supreme Lord, he comes under the control of his devotees out of his own sweet will. And then it also mentions how Mother Yashoda endeavored to bind the Lord. And after endeavoring so much, then Lord allowed himself to be bound. So we say that there is an endeavor, that is our devotional service. And secondly, the mercy of the Lord is required. So from these things, they are very, very small, like, small purports, but we can understand so many speculations we can do, so many arguments we can put forward, we can do so many things. Lord Brahma, when Krishna was present, what to speak of Lord Brahma now, when Krishna was present 5,000 years ago, although people saw him, but they didn't think he was Lord. He is the Lord. Although you see Krishna, although you see Lord, but without that qualification, you will not be able to understand. So although Lord Brahma went down and he couldn't understand, read that little purport. I really like it. So this is, he meditated for 100 years of his, and then after that successful meditation, he saw. Okay. So yeah, maybe someone else can read the purport. Who should I ask? Ian Prabhu, are you able to read the purport? Okay. So on that basis, Brahma meditated for 100 years before he could understand the supreme cause of life.
Sorry, my voice is
Yeah. Okay. You want to read? I think we are not able to hear. I'll read it out. The Supreme Lord can be experienced only through the process of devotional service, what we have just discussed, isn't it? And not by one's personal endeavor in mental speculation. The age of Brahma is calculated in terms of Divya years, which are distinct from the solar years of human beings. The Divya years are calculated in the Bhagavad Gita. Sahasra Yuga Payantam Aharyad Brahmano Vidhu. Brahma's one day is equal to 1,000 times the aggregate of 4 yugas calculated. 4,300,000 years. On that basis, Brahma meditated for 100 years before he could understand the supreme cause of all causes, and then he wrote the Brahma Samhita, which is approved and recognized by Lord Chaitanya, and in which he sings Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. One who has to wait for the mercy of the Lord before one can either render service unto him or know him as he is. So those were the couple of points. Yeah. And then we will read the final section. After this, then he could see the Lord. And when he saw the Lord, what the vision he experienced was given from text 24 till end of the chapter. Who is ready to? Manjula Mataji? Hare
Yes,
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Can you read from text 24 till the end of the chapter?
Yes, I can.
Are you on the phone?
Yes, I am. I can read it though.
Okay.
The luster of the transcendental body of the Lord mocked the beauty of the coral mountain. The coral mountain is very beautifully dressed by the evening sky, but the yellow dress of the Lord mocked its beauty. There is gold on the summit of the mountain, but the Lord's helmet, bedecked with jewels, mocked it. The mountains, waterfalls, herbs, etc., with a panorama of flowers, seem like garlands, but the Lord's gigantic body and his hands and legs, decorated with jewels, pearls, tulsi leaves, and flower garlands, mocked the scene on the mountain. His transcendental body, unlimited in length and breadth, occupied the 3 planetary systems, upper, middle, and the lower. His body was self-illuminated by unparalleled dress and variegatedness and was properly ornamented. The Lord showed his lotus feet by raising them. His lotus feet are the source of all awards achieved by devotional service free from material contamination. Such awards are for those who worship him in pure devotion. The splendor of transcendental rays from his moon-like toenails and fingernails appeared like the petals of a flower. He also acknowledged the service of the devotees and vanquished their distress by his beautiful smile. The reflection of his face, decorated with earrings, was so pleasing because it dazzled with the rays from his lips and the beauty of his nose and eyebrows. Shall I go ahead?
Yes, please. Sorry.
Oh, my dear Vidura, the Lord's waist was covered with yellow cloth resembling the saffron dust of the kadamba flower, and it was encircled by a well-decorated belt. His chest was decorated with the Shrivats marking and a necklace of unlimited value. As a sandalwood tree is decorated with fragrant flowers and branches, the Lord's body was decorated with valuable jewels and pearls. He was the self-situated tree, the Lord of all the others in the universe. And as a sandalwood tree is covered with many snakes, so the Lord's body was also covered by the hoods of Ananta. Like a great mountain, the Lord stands as the abode for all moving and non-moving living entities. He is the friend of the snakes because Lord Ananta is his friend. As a mountain has thousands of golden peaks, so the Lord was seen with the thousands of golden helmeted hoods of Anantanaga. And as a mountain is sometimes filled with jewels, so also his transcendental body was fully decorated with valuable jewels. As a mountain is sometimes submerged in the ocean water, so the Lord is sometimes submerged in the water of devastation. Lord Brahma, thus looking upon the Lord in the shape of a mountain, concluded that he was the Hari, the personality of Godhead. He saw that the garland of flowers on his chest glorified him with the Vedic wisdom in sweet songs and looked very beautiful. He was protected by the Sudarshana wheel for fighting, and even the sun, moon, air, fire, etc. could not have access to him. When Lord Brahma, the maker of the universal destination, thus saw the Lord, he simultaneously glanced over creation. Lord Brahma saw the lake in the Lord Vishnu's navel, and the lotus flower, as well as the devastating water, the drying air, and the sky, all became visible to him. Lord Brahma, thus being surcharged with the mode of passion, became inclined to create, and after seeing the 5 causes of creation indicated by the personality of Godhead, he began to offer his respectful prayers on the path of creative mentality.
Thank you very much, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
So, yeah, so after meditating for 100 years of Brahma's time, then he was able to see how the vision of the Lord, and it is very, very nicely described. And the vision of the Lord that Brahma experienced was given very nicely in these verses. So we don't have much time, but you can go and read them again. I will just mention a couple of things here. And so, bodily luster of the Lord. So it marked the coral mountain. So bodily luster was, much more beautiful than the coral mountain. Yellowish garments that the Lord was wearing were more beautiful than evening sky. Helmet bedecked with jewels were more beautiful than golden summit of the mountain. Limbs with ornaments, tulasi and garlands of the Lord are more beautiful than mountain with waterfalls, herbs, and etc. So that's a comparison that's given. And then the Lord compared to a sandalwood tree. And in this description, someone put some message here. Let me see. Hare Krishna, even if I'm not reading, I really appreciate the lecture still. Oh, sorry, Ambada Prabhu. Yeah, everyone unfortunately won't get the chance on one day, but everyone will be given a chance on different days. Yeah. Hearing, reading, everything is same. So as long as we take part. So the Lord compared to a sandalwood tree. Valuable jewels and pearls on the arms of the Garbhodak Sai Vishnu are compared to fragrant flowers and branches, like that. And the Lord is also compared to a great mountain. Just like a great mountain is a shelter of many creatures, the Lord is also shelter of all moving and non-moving beings. And just like great mountain is friend of the snakes, so many snakes, they take shelter in the mountain, on the mountain. And the Lord is also shelter of Lord Ananta. And just like great mountain has 1,000 golden peaks, the Lord is also thousands of golden helmets, helmeted woods on Ananta. So the Lord is lying, and Ananta, Lord Ananta has got many hoods. So they are like appearing to be golden peaks. Like that, the description was given. This is how Lord Brahma saw Garbhodak Vishnu. When after he meditated for 100 years, And then now he's ready to offer some prayers, and as well as ready to begin his own creative work. So we will see that in the next chapter. So I'll stop there. And just one thing I wanted to mention, that we have some private program next Thursday. Therefore, there won't be any class, I'm afraid. Even Mother Kumar would not be able to attend. We have some private program that we are doing in the evening of next Thursday. So there won't be any program. So this Sunday we are doing a 6-hour kirtan at ISKCON Manchester, and non-stop 6 continuous hours of Krishna kirtan, beginning from 12 to 6, which includes Damodara Ashtakam prayers, and as well as Gilamp offering as well. So if you have time, please do come and take part in this wonderful kirtan. It's very nice if we can do this in the association of devotees. It is so nice. So that's it from my side. I will stop there. If anyone has any comments or questions, otherwise I will end the session here. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Satish Prabhu, yes, Satish Prabhu raised his hand. You can ask, and then others, if they want, they can leave also.
No, Prabhuji, I was just clapping. Yeah.
Oh, clapping, yeah. So thank you, Prabhu. Satish Prabhu, is this your first time attending?
Yeah, my first session on Bhagavatam, yes.
Okay, hope it made sense, because we've been doing this for a number of weeks now. We are in 3rd canto. But I'm sure you'd be able to follow it. I would say that go and read the translation and some purports, and you'll be able to understand it.
Sure.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. One thing is, please continue to attend. Even if you don't understand fully in the beginning, then later we'll pick it up.
Yeah, sure. I'll try my best.
Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Radha Damodar Bhagavan ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Hari Hari.
Hare Bol.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare